Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, maybe leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I am Jesse Friedman, soon to be joined by Jack Sommers, and not only Jack, but also today's special guest, Jordan Shusterman, who is an MLB Draft guru, and we are going to do a D-backs draft deep dive with Jordan. So let's go ahead and jump on into that interview. We are so excited in this edition of Snakes Territory to be joined by the one and only Jordan Shusterman. Jordan is half of the Cespedes Barbecue Twitter account, which hopefully you're familiar with if you're a Diamondbacks fan or a baseball fan at large. Phenomenal stuff over there. Jordan also is a host on the Baseball Barbacast podcast, which is, as I said in our last episode, it's probably the best baseball podcast that you will find out there. Jack and I were doing our best to be number 2, but that's the pretty clear number 1 in my book. Jordan also writes about baseball for Yahoo Sports. So Jordan, thanks for taking the time. We're excited to talk some D-backs draft with you.
You know, there's only so much. Right, like this Thursday, we're recording this, on All-Star break, which, by the way, absolutely preposterous that the Mets and Phillies are playing tonight. That is an egregious decision for everybody involved, whoever thought that was a good idea. Should be a day of rest, right? This should be a time when I am logging off and recharging for the second half. So there's not that many things where I'm going to leap up and volunteer to do. But this is one of them. If you want, because the reality is, the draft comes and goes. It's the first thing I cover at All-Star Week, and it's something that I spent a lot of time on during the spring. And then it passes, and then I kind of have to just leave it behind because as much as I love this stuff, it's not the full time, right? Like the Baseball Americas and Fangraphs, there are outlets that pipeline that are covering amateur and draft stuff year round. And I do it too, but I have a lot of other responsibilities that kind of pull me away from it. And so once I get past the draft, I often don't actually have as many platforms to dig in on what actually happened. It's a lot of the build up to it. And so I really appreciate you guys inviting me to dig into just one team's draft. So yeah, let's do it. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's roll, man. This is awesome. It's a great opportunity too for our listeners to be able to, listen to hear somebody else that has some really great insights on the draft. So let's just dive right into it. Jesse, you fire away with the first question, man.
Yeah, I guess we'll start from the top, as it feels like we ought to. We talked about Diamondbacks' first couple picks in our last episode. With their first round pick, they took catcher Ryder Helfrick out of the University of Arkansas at number 15 overall. Seems like it is a power over hit sort of profile offensively, but the defensive grades there seem very, very strong across the board. We also talked about Blake Bryant a little bit in our last episode. Competitive balance round A pick, high school pitcher, big size there out of Citizens Christian Academy. So we'll start with those two guys, Jordan, and then we'll kind of see where we go after that.
Sure. Yeah, I think with Helfrick, I can't remember exactly where I had him on my top 50. I only have time to rank 50 prospects. And honestly, I like doing a top 50 because it forces me to be really disciplined on it's my rankings, but I also do it as a reflection of the actual class. And so because of that, I want it to be as many of the players that are going to go in the top 50 as possible. And in Helfrick's case, building up to the draft, it was this guy is clearly going to be a top. I didn't think it was a slam dunk top 10, but clearly a top half of the first round. He ends up going maybe a little bit later than a lot of the rankings had him. And I wasn't totally shocked by that. I think what was difficult to evaluate Helfrick, there are now advanced defensive metrics at the college baseball level, and certainly for those in the SEC. And his framing numbers and some of his defensive numbers were so far off the charts that it was almost hard to believe.
Wow.
So if you looked at the Synergy Sports and the 643 charts, which has a lot of advanced data, it had him as by far the most valuable defender in college baseball. I think what is interesting about that, now you have to take some of those metrics with a grain of salt, just as we do with defensive metrics, even at the major league level. What's interesting about that is that was not his reputation necessarily when he arrived on campus. He had a really good arm, but he was known for his bat, right? He was a really good high school hitter, kind of struggled in the spring. That's why he ended up going to school to begin with. But his development defensively was just incredible during his 3 years at Arkansas. And I think that's really what you're excited about as far as like the floor that you're getting, because it wasn't great right away. I mean, he had like a 642 OPS as a freshman, and then just gets better and better offensively, and has a big year this year. Led the Cape Cod League in home runs, or tied for the lead after his freshman year. And so, yeah, it's power and patience. You're probably not going to get a lot of batting average, but hey, it's 2026. I mean, come on, guys. We know that's not a big deal. That's not going to doom anybody's profile. So if he can draw his walks, which he did a lot better this year compared to last year, get the ball in the air, has real power, and if you can be a plus defensive catcher, that's obviously a pretty exciting collection of skills, I would say.
One thing I was curious about is Ian Revin was telling us that he felt that Helfrick improved a lot with regards to hitting spin. That there was actually data and metrics, and I was just wondering if, in your journey, have you seen anything to support that supposition?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that I'd be curious if how much of that is as much hitting spin as much as not missing spin, right? Not chasing spin. As I mentioned, the strikeouts went down a little bit, but the walks is really what kind of leapt forward this year. On the whole, his WRC plus was actually down from what he did as a sophomore, but that's just because the power was a little bit more. Like this year, he only hit 6 doubles and 18 homers. That kind of speaks to yeah, he's got real juice. If he gets it in the air, especially now in modern college baseball, it's probably going to go over the fence. What that spray chart starts to look like at the next level, I think will be interesting. But again, I think that and this year in the draft, once you got past that first group of players, I mean, there's a huge range of opinions. And I don't know if they said, I actually would be curious because I didn't hear exactly what Ian Revin said, or did they say something? Because you do hear this sometimes. Did they say something along the lines of yeah, we had Helfrick on their top 5 in the class, and we were so lucky to get him at 15. I don't know how much they expressed surprise that he was there at 15, because as I mentioned, a lot of the public boards did have him as more of a top 10 talent. I don't think he fell in some shocking way, but I would be curious if they viewed him as truly one of the top players in the class and were really excied to get him at the at the 15th.
He acknowledged it was nice for him to fall to them. I mean, he said, "Hey, we line him up." They insist that they always go best player available, and they had him lined up, and they were pleasantly surprised that he came down to them. And they feel like they got a great player at that value. One other question on him, and I'll let you move on if you want. In your opinion, do you think that they'll be able to maybe save a few bucks on him, maybe get him, not have to go over slot because he was expected to go higher than 15 or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always have a really kind of difficult time evaluating college signability. For as long as I've been following this closely, I still don't totally understand where the leverage comes in with players in these positions, and why those college guys normally do end up right around slot or slightly below, because what are you going to do? Technically you can go back to school, but you're not making more money next year, even if it's just not how it's going to work for 95% of these guys. So I would imagine he comes in around slot, maybe slightly below. But I mean, that's also just a good transition to the next pick, right? Because
exactly.
The fact that they took Blake Bryant at 31, that was one where Blake Bryant was one of the first players that was drafted. I guess he was the 5th player drafted who was not on my top 50, but he was right in the mix. I mean, this is someone who, the more feedback I got about him this year, was yes, he should be considered among the best high school right-handers in the draft. The problem is that he's a high school right-hander. So I didn't want to go out of my way to put on more high school pitchers on my list than I needed to. And so I mentioned him in my write-up when I was writing about Carson Bowman and Coleman Borthwick, both of whom went right before Blake Bryant. So I ended up feeling pretty validated about that. But the fact that Bryant was the second high school righty taken, I think speaks to the fact that he was absolutely in the mix. And so, I mean, credit to him. I mean, he checks all the boxes of what you want to see. It's just the nature of the demographic. And we'll see, because I don't got to tell you guys that Arizona's track record of developing pitchers is not awesome. So I'm not, maybe it's slowly starting to change. Maybe they've made some progress more recently, but there are certainly some times when pitchers land in certain positions where I'm like, oh, that's going to be awesome. Like that's going to go great. They know what to do with him. Respectfully, I don't know if I can say that about Arizona, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that Blake Bryant, gets every opportunity to kind of show that he is one of the most talented high school pitchers in this class.
We live it every day, so we're well aware. It's not offending us. And Jeremy Blaich, we trust. We're just hoping that whatever systems he's putting in will help them. We'll circle back to that. Something else that Ian Revin said about this draft and the pitchers that they took was pretty interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, again, you're weighing the signability, right? I mean, he's clearly was picked at a slot way over, what you would expect, but he's a high school guy that committed to Clemson all the way back in 2022, I read. So like, how does that kind of weigh against each other? You're trying to keep the guy out of college and get him signed. You can't, it's not like you can just lowball him and say, oh, well, you should have gone 50, 60 something.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking, so that slot is about 3.1.
Right.
I don't really know what to expect, especially because, I don't know if you guys saw, but another one of the top high school right-handers in the draft, Jensen Hirschkorn, got $4 million from the Braves in the third round, which is whoa.
Insane.
So that's not to say that he's about to get $4 million or more than $4 million, because he was drafted so much earlier and a lot of people thought he was better than Jensen Hirschkorn. But maybe it's a situation where, you really gotta pay up. Now, the other way to interpret it is they were able to get Jensen Hirschkorn all the way down there because they must have promised him something early enough that he was telling other teams, don't pick me because I got $4 million in the third round. Whereas in Blake Bryant's case, it might be the fact that he went even earlier than expected might means he's just getting around slot or slightly above. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The fact that they weren't waiting and thinking, oh, maybe we can get Blake Bryant. I would imagine maybe a month ago or at some point during this process, they were like, oh, Blake Bryant would be a good target at pick 53, right? I'm sure there were a lot of teams that were thinking okay, second round, that's where we're going to try and pay this guy. And I would guess that the D-backs found out at some point that, once we're moving towards the back of the first round, oh no, Blake Bryant's going to get picked. So if we want him, we need to just pick him now and with this pick and figure it out later. So I would imagine that's where it is. So what the bonus looks like, I don't know. Again, that's the part of the world that I just struggle with predicting, because especially with the high schoolers, it can come in all kinds of crazy ranges. But yeah, that's kind of where I would sense that ends up being. It probably is above 3.1, but how much above that, I don't really know.
Big second half of the season coming up. There might be a hot ticket, a rivalry series, a sold out experience that you need to get your hands on. And SeatGeek is the spot for that. You can find good pricing. They help you with the pricing. Green dot, good. Red dot, not as good. And they help you with your view of the seat for some big matchups coming up in August, September, and eventually leading up to playoffs.
Why would you not use SeatGeek? If you want to view from your seat, you want to know if it's a good seat, if it's a good deal, it has all of it on the app. It's easy to use. It's one click, boom. You buy the tickets, they send them right to you. You get them on the app, and then you can go check out whatever game, whatever you're a fan of, you can go to, whether it's baseball, whether it's concerts, whatever you're into, you can find a ticket, and you can always try to find the green dot on SeatGeek.
And for MLB tickets, you can get 10% off with that promo code we're running all season long, Territory10. That's Territory10 off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later.
We were taking a look at Diamondbacks past draft picks and realized I think the last time they took a high school pitcher this high in the draft was Blake Walston back in 2019. And unfortunately that hasn't worked out so well. But at the time, the
big leaguer
was
barely.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Barely a big leaguer.
Technically, yes. And he's working his way back from Tommy John surgery. So maybe that story isn't quite over at this point. But But yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Like the Diamondbacks' track record developing pitching is not awesome, and at the same time, we still have them, and I imagine pretty much any other team around the league saying no. We're always taking the best available player, right? Like we're just we're just going out there taking the guy highest on our board. I'm curious, just generally, Jordan. Like it's it's probably fair to say that like teams aren't really taking the player that is best available in like the universal sense. They're maybe viewing it as like the best available player for our organization and our skill set to a degree. And that's why the Diamondbacks keep taking like 5'10" outfielders, like every single year, or infielders, I guess, in some cases. Like that's not a coincidence, right? Like, do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I do like that, Trevor Condon goes off the board a couple picks before them. Um, and they're like, guys, don't worry, we'll still take Braden down. It's just the college version of
Yeah.
this. You know, like I know we're not going to get Trevor Condon, and but it's weird because in that case, that specific example, like I get annoyed. I don't do mock drafts, so I'm glad I don't have to it's easy for me to sit back and laugh at the level to which everyone just does the same trends with the same stuff. But in a lot of cases, it ends up being correct. Sometimes that's based on intel. Sometimes that is based on demographic trends. Um, but yeah, like if I was doing mock drafts, would I put Trevor Condon with the Diamondbacks? I don't know, probably. But it just felt like because because mock drafting is talking to people who actually do them, because it's such a difficult exercise. Whenever you have an opportunity to like do something that it feels a little bit easier and obvious, it's just like, okay, great, well, I'll just do that because I don't have to think about it as much before I start shuffling through these. So I agree with you. It is kind of weird. It's always funny to me when teams come out and be like, yeah, we take the best player available. And it's like, yeah, duh, I hope so. Like I'm so glad. Thanks for that insight into your process. Um, and I think in the case of Ryder Helfrick, like, yeah, that probably was who was the best on their board. Played pretty
Sure.
straight, especially when you're picking in the middle of the round, right? Well, with Blake Bryant, I think it probably was a mix, right? Was he number one on the board? Probably not. Was it someone that they really wanted and realized he wasn't going to be there the next time around? Yes. And so you make it happen. You have to elevate those high school players because it's just going to cost more. And when you get to that range of the draft, those are the guys that are going to come off the board. So I don't know. I always kind of go back and forth on this, but it's a mix. You just have to acknowledge that all these teams are playing the game in that degree. There's very few teams now that are just picking and giving everybody slot. That is a very small number of teams, and you can just say that that's stupid, that's how our draft works, and I would say, yep, can't tell you you're wrong. But to me, it also kind of makes it fun, the unpredictability of it.
I have a question. So, the one thing that they said that they saw the trend of hitters going early. So they leaned into college pitchers with power stuff, big bodies, guys that can log innings. And sure enough, 4 through 7, they took, 4 college pitchers, Josh McDevitt, Mercurius, Michael Worley, and Carson Turnquist, who's a Tommy John survivor. And I was just curious, amongst those 4, who kind of jumps out to you the most? Like the D-backs have a better chance of being able to develop.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that Mercurius is the one. I mean, he's certainly the one that I think casual fans have become more familiar with. And Worley is very interesting. That one, he's certainly on my radar as someone who kind of popped, right? You're not seeing that many guys getting picked out of Stony Brook. So whenever that happens, that's going to, and not just Stony Brook, someone who is like from the middle of the country and went to California Junior College, like how he even ended up at Stony Brook in the first place, I would love to learn more about, frankly. But Worley's interesting, but Mercurius is the one that I am just like, I don't know what to expect. This is someone who had there was like real hope that he could pitch his way into the top few rounds when he transferred to Oklahoma from UNLV. And he was so bad he had like a 9 ERA in SEC play. And he had scattered in like some really nice performances here and there, and you would see the stuff. But when you're getting shelled against the best competition to that degree, even if the stuff looked pretty good, it was kind of hard to know what to expect. And then he's a key contributor on one of the most incredible College World Series runs we've ever seen. At the same time, he also wasn't starting, right? We see him
Right.
bouncing back and forth between the bullpen and the rotation. So, you watch him and he certainly looks the part, but that is another one that I imagine is going to need some developmental love. And I don't know. Back to the point about Blake Bryant, it's like it's a different conversation when you're talking about a college guy. But that's another one that it'll be interesting to see what tweaks that they make with him, and also in round 5, maybe you do just see him as like a multi-inning reliever, and then he could thrive in that role. Maybe you don't feel as much pressure to continue to develop him as a starter. I think that'll be really. I don't know if Ian Revin said anything about that, but yeah, Mercurius, just because of the trajectory of his season, which certainly ended in triumphant fashion. I just am really interested to see what happens with him next.
Yeah, they're going to start him as a starter, but we'll see how long that lasts.
Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned over text earlier in the week, Jordan, that you have plenty of Carson Kerce thoughts. Diamondbacks 53rd overall pick, second rounder, shortstop out of Georgia Tech. Would love to hear what you got on him.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a classic case of like, and I honestly am kind of bummed. I know he doesn't go in the top 50, but this is someone that as the spring was going on, I was like, man, I'd love to find a way to get this guy on my list. I saw him in person. I saw Georgia Tech just like bludgeon Boston College for a few days at the end of the season in person. That's when I was like, oh my God, Von Lackey. Oh my God, Von Lackey. But also Carson Kerce, man, like this dude is a really, really impressive player. And he is in an era of guys are just going to, 5 schools in 5 years and the portal mania. And there's plenty of that across the board. I just mentioned one with Mercurius. And Helfrick kind of fits this too, I should say, right? But guys that start or play a lot all 3 years at one school, this sounds so stupid because this is like what college baseball was for a long time. But now it's like this rarity. But if you have someone that starts for 3 years at the same place and just takes a big step forward each of those successive years, I just love that. I love that trend line, and really nobody embodies it more than Carson Kerce, who played a lot as a freshman, only hits 2 homers, 759 OPS, jumps to 871 as a sophomore, and then this year was one of the best players in college baseball. 29 doubles is just outrageous. 11 homers. How much power is really going to be in there at the next level? I think we'll see, but he can play shortstop. He's got great contact skills. I ended up not putting him on just because he is right-handed and he doesn't really have a lot of power. And there's some people that are still not like, oh my God, he's the best. He's an amazing shortstop. But there's a lot to like here. And this could be a situation where if it goes well, we're kind of looking up in a year and being like, well, duh, like look what he did his junior year. This guy was one of the best players in the country. Like what more did you want him to do? So I'm all in. Again, do I think this guy's going to slug close to 700 in pro ball? I don't think that. But what a fun player, and what a cool rise for him to play his way up to this. But because a year ago it would have been like nice player, 8th round. He'll get drafted because he's playing starting infielder at a really good ACC school, but he did not pop as like a standout prospect in a way that he really did by the end of the season.
That's exciting. By the way, how much college baseball do you get to watch? That's great that you were able to go watch him play live.
I mean, I try to watch as much as I can. And frankly, like obviously on the weekends, it's become much more watchable just in terms of it being broadcasted. I mean, that was just the case. I try to get out. I don't live near a whole lot of high level college baseball, but when I'm traveling, I try beginning of the season. Like I like to line up my spring training trip with the college baseball opening weekend, so I can see a bunch of players there. That's always good. And yeah, whenever I travel, if I can go down and see guys in person, it's I always find it to be really valuable. And also just like you just have the history with these guys. I think the high schoolers, there's always just a lot more mystery. And that's why I like to go to the combine and get to know some of these high school kids. I didn't meet with Blake Bryant, but some of these other top high school picks, getting to know them because I've never covered like any of the showcase stuff or followed that. So whereas with the college players, especially who've been there for 3 or 4 years, I mean, these guys have a lot of history. They have a lot of data to evaluate, but also just really interesting journeys, like just an interesting path. And not to steer the conversation too hard, but like that's what makes some of their later picks, some of their later college picks. I mean, there are some crazy trajectories with some of these players. And those are the stories that just like capture my heart because I recognize that the chances of any of these day two guys becoming big leaguers is low, but they got drafted for a reason. And some of these players have really followed some interesting paths, whether it is multiple schools, whether it is just breaking out late. And so, yeah, they definitely have a few of those guys late in their draft class that stand out to me.
That's a perfect segue because, one other thing that Ian said to us was as he ran down the list of day two guys, and especially, from 11 to 20, he said they all have a carrying tool. And, he was more, it just kind of really reminded me back in the old Moneyball days, like, focus on what the player can do, not what he can't. So, with that in mind, let's dig in, man. Like, tell us, who's
Sure.
really jumping off the page for you? What's the best stories that you see out there?
Yeah, so I'll do four of them, and I'll try to do it quickly. Well, the one that I don't know as much about, like personally, but from a prospect standpoint, clearly is someone that D-backs fans should be paying attention to, is the 11th rounder, Cody Bochelle. Just because he was, I think that this is someone that is going to get a 7-figure bonus, and assuming he is going to sign. And normally 11th rounders, there's a reason they're getting picked. Like that is, they have some sort of deal in place. Big lefty first baseman. Like, this is someone that would not be surprising if he becomes one of their better hitting prospects. So as far as like this guy should be on your prospect list radar, I would say Cody Bochelle you should definitely pay attention to. But as far as just like human beings and like trajectories to be invested in, I would say the three that I definitely want to highlight are Paul Schoenfeld, Chris Katz, and Andrew Wirtz. So Schoenfeld I don't know as much about, but he really popped on my radar this year because this is a D2 guy, center field, incredible center fielder. If we're talking about carrying tools, terrific center fielder, huge part of the West Virginia team that went to the College World Series for the first time. So Schoenfeld's really interesting. He's obviously, all three of these guys are old, right? These are 23-year-olds. So these are not going to cost very much in terms of signing bonuses, but they had big enough and interesting seasons to get drafted. And then Chris Katz is a wild one. This dude was at Wake Forest for 4 years, really just barely played. He just could not get on the field, but he performed well in the summer in the Valley League. And then this year transfers to Mercer as a 5th-year senior and has one of the best seasons in college baseball. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. You put up his season statistically against anybody else, and he's playing mostly first base, corner, outfield. He's a right-handed hitter, but the numbers are just outrageous. But the fun fact about Chris Katz that I did not know until more recently is that he was on the USA Baseball 12U national team, which the fact that this even exists to begin with is already a little bit like, what are we doing? Why are we sending 12-year-olds to compete in Taiwan? But like, I love the Little League World Series, but really the best 12-year-olds are playing on this team. And Chris Katz was on this team in 2015 cool. that went to Taiwan, that won the gold medal, that had a bunch of future big leaguers on that team, including Nick Kurtz, his former teammate at Wake Forest, who at that point was like the Shohei Ohtani of 12-year-olds. He was like leading the team in innings and leading the team in homers. So anyway, that's Chris Katz. So, the numbers speak for themselves. And then finally, Andrew Wirtz, the 20th rounder, pick number 596. Listen, there's only so many 20th rounders that I can say I've seen pitch in person, but this is one of them. This is another three-school journey. D2 Stonehill, D3 Salve Regina, whose shirt I'm wearing today. Shouts out to their head coach, Eric Sorella, who I'm tight with. I went and saw Salve play last spring in Boston, and I saw Andrew Wirtz pitch, and I was like, damn, what's this guy doing in D3? He's got some good stuff. Sure enough, transfers to Northeastern, and he's one of the best relievers in that conference this year. And now he's in the Diamondbacks organization. So the journey continues for Andrew Wirtz, Northeastern kid. I believe he's from New Hampshire. So not a lot of big leaguers coming out of Dover. But yeah, man. I mean, those are my guys. So all pressure on the D-backs developmental system to keep these players relevant, and maybe at some point over the next few years, I'll come to spring training and I'll be on a backfield with one of you guys somewhere, and I'll be like, "Oh man, there's Andrew Wirtz. He's throwing to Corbin Carroll or whatever." That'll fire me up if I ever get to do that.
Jesse, you got to blow Jordan's cover here, how he signed in to the pod.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jordan may or may not have joined this episode as #1 Andrew Wirtz fan. It's like his little
Yeah.
title
Hey,
card.
someone's
So
got to be. Someone's
someone's
got to
got
be,
to be.
right? I mean, I presumably like his family is bigger fans than I am, but I mean,
Maybe.
I'm
Who's to
pulling for
say?
this kid, man. Yeah, I love it. So but look, I'm excited to like I'll be honest. I know rounds 13 through 17, I got nothing. I've never heard of any of these guys. So I'm excited to, I'm doing my best here. I'm trying to keep up, but I'm sure I'll learn about. So if Jack Spanier or Andrew Evans ends up being awesome and I didn't tell you about it, like that's on me. I apologize.
No, this is great.
We won't hold it against you, Jordan. We won't hold it against you. We could go on for much longer, I am sure. But Jordan, we really appreciate your time, your dedication to staying on top of all this stuff. I know it's been a busy week for you. So thanks again for hopping on. We really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Thank you again, man.
Braden Dowd, you probably deserve more time, but you know what? Yeah, we'll do it next time I come on. We'll talk about it more. So thank you both for having me on. This was really fun, really cool to have this platform to talk about these picks, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks, George.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, the MLB season is in full swing, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to call your shot with daily dingers. Joining the action is easy. Just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game, and if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. It's just another reason why FanDuel is the home of home runs. So are you ready to play your game? Head over to FanDuel.com/podcast to get started. That's FanDuel.com/podcast to opt in for daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back in to Snakes Territory as we continue the show with a few final notes here at the end. Just a few things to hit on. First of all, Jack, Tommy Troy, unfortunately, has landed on the injured list. This is news that we just got in the past 48 hours or so. He is going to the 10-day injured list with a sprained right AC joint. This, of course, came as a result of banging into the center field wall on Saturday in Los Angeles. And this isn't great, Jack. I know Tommy Troy was not necessarily clicking on all cylinders at the plate, but he was an important part of this team's outfield depth.
Yeah, this is really rough. I mean, if it's the most mild form, look, it sprained it right AC joint he dislocated it, at least temporarily. Maybe it just popped right back in. That I'm not sure, but if it's the smallest grade or most easiest grade, 1-2, that's still at least a couple of weeks. So, I mean, look, you're not going to see Tommy Troy before August 1, almost 1,000% certain on that. The question, and we'll find out from Torrey when we see him during workouts Thursday night or by Friday afternoon, will be, are we looking at a grade 3 or 4 where you're talking about over a month missing? And I don't think it's a type of injury that's going to likely require surgery, but, we'll find out about that soon. So my guess is that the most optimistic is he's going to be out 2 weeks, to anywhere to 6 or 8. So we'll just have to find out. So don't expect to see Tommy Troy for a while, which creates some issues for them. I mean, they got to replace him. We don't know who that's going to be just yet. We might not know that until Thursday night or even Friday during the day. You have basically 4 players in the minor leagues that are on the 40-man roster. Lou James Groover, Tyler Locklear, Adrian Del Castillo, and Jose Fernandez. And they need an infielder. I mean, they're going to have to add an infielder. They don't need 7 outfielders or 6 outfielders. So my guess is probably going to be Locklear. I think it's his turn to get a shot. I mean, he's been hot lately. Maybe he's been beating up on some weak pitching, but bottom line is he was PCL Player of the Week. They traded for him. So don't be surprised if they bring him in, because you can play Tim Tower anywhere. If they need more coverage in the outfield, they want to rotate still at first base. If they can play Tim at third base, if Nolan needs a day off, you still have Vargas to back up at shortstop and second base. So my guess is probably going to be Locklear, but you never know. Fernandez, Groover, they could also be guys that get called up. Fernandez has been hot in July. He's hitting 371 for the month. And Groover, he had a shot. Now, whether or not they would bring him right back, which they can because of an injury, but maybe it's somebody else's turn. So we'll have to see. Now, the last thing on this is there is an open spot on the 40-man roster. So if they did want to add somebody like Christian Robinson, theoretically they could, but I just don't think the odds of that are very high.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. Robinson has a 797 OPS this season in Reno, which is decent, but considering the ballpark and environment and so forth, not necessarily jumping off the page. So be interesting to see what the Diamondbacks do there. Unfortunate news for Tommy Troy. Hopefully he's able to get back soon. Also on the injury front, Jack, there was a picture floating around on social media of Geraldo Perdomo with his hand wrist area wrapped up. And people were slightly concerned about this. Like, is Perdomo going to open the second half on the injured list? We got a report from Steve Gilbert on this yesterday. He said that Perdomo received a cortisone injection in his left wrist to battle some inflammation that he's experienced in that area. And it is not a serious injury. According to Mike Hazen, Perdomo is still expected to play on Friday against the Cardinals. So crisis averted there, Jack. Sounds like Perdomo is going to be just fine.
Yeah, had a lot of people nervous. But, the fact that it was a wrap, not a cast, was encouraging to astute observers, and turns out that's the case. Usually cortisone shots, you need 3-4 days to rebound from. So that timing works out. Like you said, he's expected to play on Friday. Hopefully there's nothing else going on there. I assume it was from the hit by pitch against the Dodgers. I've also seen some awkward swings, so hard to say exactly what caused it. When we talk to him, we'll find out.
Another piece of news that we got here in the last couple of days is that Pavin Smith is in fact staying in the organization. He has cleared waivers and has been outrighted to AAA Reno. So Smith is still in the organization. I think you and I touched on this on the show at one point and suggested that another team probably would claim Pavin if he was designated for assignment. So this came as a little bit of a surprise to me, Jack, but I guess also just reflects that the Diamondbacks are not the only team that had some doubts about Pavin Smith, that maybe his perception around the league is also not that of, a league average type hitter that technically he's been over his career.
Or the other take on that is the Diamondbacks were the only team in baseball that felt that Pavin Smith can hit.
Also possible. This is true. So Pavin is still in the organization. Theoretically, he could come back up to the big leagues at some point. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. Certainly not right now. I think Tyler Locklear would certainly get a shot in the big leagues before Smith would. Maybe the D-backs would bring Groover back as well before they would do that. So I don't think a Pavin Smith return to the big leagues is imminent, but doesn't hurt to have him in the organization still. As far as guys that you could have as available depth, you could do a lot worse than him. So Smith stays in the organization. One other storyline, I guess, was there anything else on Pavin, Jack, before we?
Well, I thought that our good friend Diamondback Stats and Info highlighted in his Twitter account a blurb from an article on MLB trade rumors. I'm not sure if you happen to have that handy by any chance. If not, I will find it.
Yeah,
but I thought that was important information.
Let me see if I can drag it in. Here we are. I'll go ahead and read this out. This is from MLB Trade Rumors, some good information on Pavin Smith's situation. It says Smith has the right to elect free agency, but isn't likely to do so. Players with at least 3 years of service time have the right to reject outright assignments in favor of the open market. But if they have less than 5 years of service, they have to forfeit their remaining salary commitments in exercising that right. Smith is in that 3 to 5 window and is making $2.25 million this year. That leaves about $900,000 still to be paid out. Assuming he doesn't want to leave that on the table, Smith will report to Reno. So yeah, helpful context there. It seems like just from a financial standpoint, it makes more sense for Pavin to return to the organization and stay in Reno than to pursue something on the open market.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no one's spitting away $900K. I mean, he could gamble that no team wanted to pick up the remaining amount of his MLB salary, and he would get signed as a free agent at league minimum, for the remaining 2+ months of the season. So then you're looking at about $400,000. So and that's if he got signed by a major league organization to a major league contract. The best case scenario is he would lose $500K. So nobody's spitting away that kind of money. So that makes total sense.
The last thing we wanted to hit on this episode is that Mike Hazen apparently had a discussion with the team before the All-Star break festivities began. Sounds like this was sort of in contrast to last year, where Hazen had, of course, a big conversation with the team once the team was officially selling and Hazen was starting to make those moves. This time around, it happens before all of those decisions are made. And Hazen, it sounds like, Jack, according to the reporting we've gotten, he just wanted to make it really clear to the team the opportunity that's in front of them, the importance of coming out and playing well to start the second half, and really to force his hand to go out there and to add to this roster. And it sounds like players were also encouraged to come to him with any questions or concerns or whatnot. He's been just kind of very upfront and honest about where the team is, and he wanted players to be very clear on that before they enter the second half.
Yeah, I mean, the way Steve, wrote it, said players were encouraged to speak to him privately if they had any concerns about his message or wanted to share their feelings about it. So, his message was, hey, you guys got to do this now and turn me into a buyer. It's up to you guys. It's in your hands what I'm going to do next. That puts a lot of pressure on them too, as we've seen over and over and over with the Arizona Diamondbacks. When there are low expectations, they do well. When there are high expectations, they do poorly. Or is that just regression to the mean, Jesse? I don't know. Help me out here.
Who's to say? Nobody knows. But yeah, definitely a change of course here for Hazen, trying to get in front of this. His exact quote was, "I didn't want to wait to hold back some of the things I wanted to say to them that maybe I should have said last year on July 1st. So this is him kind of looking at the way things turned out last year and wanting to change course there. Granted, yeah, we did hear Corbin Carroll talk about how the team was pressing, going into the trade deadline a season ago. And some part of me is like, I don't know if the GM giving this sort of talk in front of everyone is going to prevent that. I wonder if it might make that an issue. But what do I know? These are real human beings, and I wasn't in that meeting. I wasn't in that room to see everyone's faces. Maybe they view this as being very motivating and energizing going into the second half. And that sets the stage for this weekend, Jack. Diamondbacks have 3 very important games against the St. Louis Cardinals at home. Of course, 10 of their first 13 games coming out of the break are against teams that they are directly competing with in the wild card race. So it is hard to overstate the importance of the games this weekend, the games coming up after that. We don't have pitching matchups as of right now, but hopefully we'll get that here before too long.
Absolutely. There are workouts at Chase Field Thursday night, and we will get a chance to talk to Torrey. So, we'll and then we'll see him again on Friday afternoon. So when we do our live show on Friday evening post game at Chase Field, we'll have lots of updates and information for you guys, as well as the game recap.
There we go. Yeah, next show will be live from Chase Field after Friday night's game. I'll be out there as well. Jack and I will be together in person, which is always fun. So be sure to join us on YouTube then. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell icon for notifications so you never miss an episode of the show. Also really helps us out if you would drop a like on this video if you haven't already. You can find us on Twitter as well. I am at Jesse and Friedman. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. The show is at Snakes Territory. And our special guest today, Jordan Shusterman, you can find him at J_Shusterman_. Great follow. Shouts out to him once again for hopping on. Really, really great time there. Thank you again to all of you for being with us on this episode. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back once again tomorrow night, Friday night, with a live post-game show. We hope to see you